Oh man, what a day. So, if I'm not dying to the allergies of climate change, I am dying to see Joker Folie à Deux because everyone is tearing that apart like rabbit Wolverines, and I want to get in on that action so far and see how that movie is. Anyway, how are you guys? Hopefully, you guys are having a fantastic day. As we talk about the criticism sucks of the ages with the Criticism Sucks podcast, we are going to talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake and the discourse of the before and after with Bloober Team knocking it out of the park. We're going to talk about Emion TV, or better known as AKA Ronald McDonald, AKA Doink the Clown, AKA a fucking idiot, because this guy like completely just likes to lie and make up sources that comes square out of his ass like colored balloons. And then we're going to talk about what I think of grifters and why I cover them and why I dislike them. First topic is Silent Hill. Now, it was a lot of people talking mad shit on Silent Hill when they saw that Bloober Team logo. They were like, this is from the studio that is equivalent to the Ed Wood of horror gaming. I seen it all over the place. Bloober's mid. They are a studio that has a shitty track record. They cannot make a good game to save their lives, even though I think a 7 or a 6 is like okay at best, or, just slightly above average, but still, I digress. Apparently, according to what everyone was saying, and I'm not really like a big Bloober Team enthusiast, right? I rarely know anything about them, but they made mid games, according to what people said. They made games that weren't on the caliber of a Silent Hill 2. That going into it made me a little bit like worried, right? I thought to myself, like, holy shit. And apparently, according to what people said, additionally, they only made walking simulators, which are games that are just walking mechanics and that's it, and you're going to sightsee and probably get jump scared a little bit. They never really made a combat focused game. And Silent Hill doesn't really have the most stellar combats. The combat is itself rather poor, in my opinion, compared to like stuff like Resident Evil back then. Resident Evil dog walked Silent Hill on gameplay. Always did. Always did. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know why people got mad at Maximilian for pointing out that fact, but it's true. Resident Evil was the better game gameplay wise, and Silent Hill was the better game for story and atmosphere. It always was like that. I was kind of excited to see someone tackle a modernized Silent Hill and maybe update and refine the gameplay, but give like push and pull to the characters, like fighting back against nurses. I loved in the trailers that they showed James getting pummeled on and wailed on by like a nurse, and the nurse would like block an attack and push him away, showing that you can't really spam it, you have to dodge. And it looked fine for what it was. I had no problem with the later gameplay presentations. The issue then came from some clips I saw of a ghost child like bumping his head into the wall, killing the atmosphere for layers of fear, and people just laughing at it, saying, is this a horror game or a freak show that's actually funny? We don't know. We cannot tell the difference. Going off of Bloober's track record itself, I did contend and I said that this might be a little bit too over exaggeration filled, right? It might be a little bit too weird because a studio can make like maybe a few bad games, but that does not dictate their forwardness in the future of making possibly a good game. Case in point, Sony Ben. Sony Ben made Bubsy 3D. That game was trash, alright? I hated Bubsy 3D. Naughty Dog made Way of the Warrior, a Mortal Kombat ripoff. That game was absolutely shit, alright, from what I played. Naughty Dog would go on to make Uncharted, The Last of Us, and Crash. That shit was just fire all around, across the board, right? But they made Way of the Warrior. Sony Ben, they made Bubsy 3D. That game sucked, alright? Terrible platformer, not that great. But then you move on to Siphon Filter, and Siphon Filter wasn't really that bad. It was kind of good, actually. It put Sony Ben on the map. A studio can make a game that is not favorable and then make one that is favorable in the future. And if you have no idea, if you haven't played said game, you are giving them an unfair shake. Fast forward to now, where it's like, and I was always like cautiously optimistic about Bloober Team. I thought they nailed some of the atmosphere, and I thought they nailed like the graphics and everything, the voice acting as well, but the animations look weird. And I said I was excited for it. I'm picking up the game. I did not go into this religious cultist boycott about Silent Hill 2 where I'm like, I'm not getting it. Fuck Bloober Team. I'm not giving them a shot. I have no interest. It's all going to be trash. And now we see the review score, an 87, which is 2 points off from the original, but it's still a relatively high score for what we were expecting. I thought it was going to be like mid 80s, low 90s, and I was kind of right on the money in between there. I was like, yeah, because the previews of the game were very positive when people were playing them at press events. They were giving their first impressions being positive. And I believe that Bloober came out themselves and said for that action trailer that everyone shat on, where the gameplay looked like James grew an additional invisible arm and decided to hold a shotgun. For that gameplay that people disliked, the Bloober Team CEO came out and said, "Hey man, what the fuck is this, Konami? You are misrepresenting our game hard. It's supposed to be like a slow build, a slow burn, and showing atmospheric psychological horror. This is not it. Even we, the developers, do not agree with this trailer and we don't like it." When there is internal pushback, sometimes that could lead to great things. And if Konami misrepresented Bloober Team, they had every right to critique what they were saying. I love this, and I thought to myself afterwards, maybe it's an old gameplay build. Let's see where it goes. And it turns out, I guess we were right, because the game is just getting a lot of praise right now. If you were a healthy skeptic, if you were someone that was cautiously optimistic, the next part is not directed towards you. But if you are a Silent Hill purist, if you are someone that said it was going to be shit the whole time, I would imagine today is going to be a long day for you, and it's going to be a long night as well. That's my favorite phrase, right? That's my favorite phrase now. It's going to be a long night for you because you were hating this entire time. You were not giving it a chance. You were misjudging, and now it's getting thrown back at you to the point now where it's like people are kind of coping because it's like this is the people that are kind of coping. Silent Hill fans realizing they got a good game, and people are like, "Where is this from?" I've not seen a single person complain, and I've seen people complain. It's because of Silent Hill purists. They don't want this game to succeed. They say that Silent Hill 2 had a legacy, and Bloober is ruining that legacy and ruin everything. And they want Silent Hill 2 to keep being this underground, edgy game of the cult. Are there people like that? Yes, I've seen them. I've seen them in my own comment section. Where is it? Where I talked about Silent Hill purist, and someone said, "Imagine thinking Bloober Team was capable of producing anything of value." I don't think this comment aged well. I guess some people enjoy modern reimaginings that destroy the original vision, but the purists just want the artistic integrity upheld, which it won't be. Did not age well. Let's go to the top, right, on my video, right, where it's like Silent Hill 1 through 4 are just objectively masterpieces. Anything after is objectively garbage. Simple as that. Oh, consuming slop, all that other stuff that people threw my way. What about this 87? What about that? You guys have anything to say? Anything to say left? Probably not. I think what's going to happen is they're going to say, "Oh, you don't trust the critics. You can't trust them. You can't trust them with your lives." But what we have now is people coping so hard that they're going and they are trying to edit the wikia of Silent Hill 2 Remake and make the scores lower than what they actually are. You cannot make this shit up, all right? This is pathetic. All right, this is fucking pathetic at this point. The scores didn't fit your narrative, so you have to go to a website to edit it and make it a 1 out of 5, a 0, a 2, a 6, a 3. What? Because people liked the game? Because it reviewed well beyond expectations and now you're just completely mad about it? This is so fucking funny to me. I've never seen this level of butthurt before in my life, and it just makes it 10 times more hilarious because people were saying what they were saying in the comment section, and you guys are getting like debunked. And just look at you in the comment section trying to like go ahead and say, oh, this is the worst thing ever because you guys called it wrong. That part is funny. Again, I'm not talking about the healthy skeptics of the world, the people who even said, hey, this game, I didn't think it would score this much, but hey, I love to be wrong. I can't wait to play it. This is not about you guys. It's about the real dregs of the purist world for Silent Hill doing shit like this, where they have to give a game on a fucking citation website a 0 out of 10 to make themselves feel good, right? It's just kind of funny. We had this guy say, well, we've been down this road before with positive reviews from game journalists. They don't mean much, but one of the reviews he highlighted was Resident Evil 4 Remake, when the audience, and it's like about 5,000 people, the audience scores gave this game an 8.8, which is pretty good. So don't trust the journalists, but apparently when you included RE4 in here, lots of fans like this game apparently. And we're not going to get into the whole spiel of there are people who like to review bomb a lot and make false claims, and we have this wikia being edited right now from a bunch of people that can't stand the fact that this game scored well for Silent Hill 2 Remake. And we just keep going forward. It's like, yes, there are game journalists that I disagree with. Look at this game's radar preview, right? Where they said, well, this is the actual review, I think, where they said the con of Silent Hill 2 Remake is that it stays too close to the source material. Are you fucking kidding me? It stays too close to the source material, and thus that is a negative. That is actually a good thing, in my opinion. Yes, there are game journalists that make very, 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 very weird opinions. But I have something for you. There are a lot of people that are also saying Silent Hill 2 Remake is good, that are fans. This is taken from the Silent Hill subreddit, and they are not reviewers. It's just people that got the game early. You see this guy showing his start time, end time, whatever, you know, his save times, showing his validity, saying he loved the game and the third act. Another guy saying he clocked in at 22 hours, getting the game early. I'm sure that's not a reviewer saying that if you don't have any other games in your backlog, Silent Hill is about to take over. I couldn't put it down. That's another one. So it's not just game journalists showing their affinity for the game. There are people actually playing it right now and saying, hey, it's kind of pretty dope. It's not perfect, 8 out of 10, but I liked it, right? So that is a good start to this whole affinity that Bloober just couldn't do it. People were like, Bloober couldn't do it, and now they have. So I think it's going to be a long night for internet grifters. You probably just should have waited for more information. You should have waited for more stuff to come out as opposed to making narratives. I can clearly see that some people will not be convinced. I think at this point, though, the best thing is to play the game and see how you feel about it, as opposed to all of this random bullshit and making yourselves look weird. There was another guy, too, complaining, saying that he believed that the remakes were anti-art. And I just think that's like, that's the first thing you would say as a contrarian. I'm sorry. There is nothing that is anti-art about this game existing in the first place. It's just a remake. It's just a remake. Now, is it things I want Konami to do, like maybe put out another remaster of Silent Hill 2 that was actually good because the HD version was kind of ugh, right? Yes, yes. They should be preserving the past. However, that being said, just because they make a remake doesn't mean that it's anti-art. If anything, there's going to be a lot of new people getting into this experience for the first time in history, and a lot of old people playing it now because of these reviews and being excited. It's like, this is what I don't like about Grifters. They suck the excitement out of everything, dude, even if a game is great. Which is why that Reddit post of making fun of the people that are like, this is like 10 9/11s because the Silent Hill game was perceived as good after Silent Hill 1 through 4 and people still in denial about it is fucking crazy, right? It's like at this point, will you ever be pleased? Even with all the pros and cons and nuance in this game shaping up to be something cool, will you ever be pleased? You got this guy, Dr. Disaster, right here, straight up lying, straight up grifting, straight up fucking lying, man. Saying that, oh, well, the pre-sale numbers for Silent Hill 2 Remake is absolutely pathetic. And then you go to this picture here, and this is why I love having all these receipts. So he said the pre-sale numbers are pathetic, but it is on the top sellers of Steam right now. It's number 5, right? You see these people have like no thought process whatsoever. Head empty, let's just say something and hope it becomes true. When the fact is, a lot of people are pre-ordering this game on Steam, and a lot of people will be pre-ordering more of it when they get wind from their friends, word of mouth, etc., that it might seem like it's actually not bad. Videos like this are made to make people perpetually angry. And when the data disproves it, somehow they still exist. They keep going. I see the same thing said over and over again about Dead Rising Remaster. And I'm just kind of like, okay, Steam sales for Dead Rising Remaster, but we're talking about a multi-plat that's on 2 other consoles. Not just Steam, but Xbox and PlayStation. Where is the raw critical data that this game flopped? Now, if a studio comes out and says a game flopped, then yes, it is written in stone. But I believe a lot of grifters, what they like to do is they like to say, oh, if a game reviews well that they don't like, they immediately move on to sales because that's the only argument they can like attach themselves to, right? At this point. Oh, what are the sales going to be like if the game flops? It proves my point. And then if they are later on proven wrong after some time, because remember, there is fiscal quarters for sales and how they operate, and if a studio says, hey, this sold pretty good actually, it met our expectations. A lot of people seem to forget that you have to meet a certain sales target for the publisher. It could be as big as they want it to be. If they want a game to sell 1 million copies and it exceeds that, it's a success to them. If they want a game to sell like 2 million copies, 5 million copies, 10, as long as it hits that number. Now, I do think it starts getting ridiculous after like 10 million, unless you're like a big IP like fucking Call of Duty or something like that. You're never gonna probably get all that. If you're like a big IP like God of War, Spider-Man, that's the only way you're gonna hit those numbers. But any other franchise hitting like maybe 2 million, 1 million, 3 million for horror, I think that's like decent to expect. Like every Resident Evil game right now, if it hits like 3 million or higher, I think that is expected because the IP is like super popular. To say the pre-sales have flopped and to get proven wrong by the exact Steam charts shows you just can't do information to save your fucking dick, man. let's continue on. And just a lot of nasty stuff people were saying. You got Ito calling out another, I think he's a Japanese grifter. I have no idea who this guy is that is making these posts, but I assume he was complaining about the facial models. You know, there were people saying woke DEI detected Angela Sweet Baby, they ruined that, and Ito said this: don't just take what people say on the internet at face value, but see for yourself and verify the facts before you say anything. Truer words that needed to be spoken. If you're an adult, you should stop saying disrespectful things to the actors who played them, like calling them ugly. And I 100% agree. That's still being a dick. That's still applying to the toxic fandom of Silent Hill by doing stuff like that. Grifters are not making it any better. So to conclude, like, people just called it wrong here. You have to accept it. It's like, if you're a healthy skeptic, it's fine. If you are someone that looked at their track record and say, oh, Bloober Team is a little bit dicey there, it's fine. But to say and still be in denial about all this and to lie, like Dr. Disaster, to edit a wikia because you're so mad that a game got an 8 out of 10 is fucking crazy to me. That's wild, bro. And now we move on to this video by the Gaming Brit show. Remakes are cringe and there's nothing we could do. Which is, I mean, this guy is a bona fide purist. We know this. He compared Sonic gameplay and DMC gameplay. He compared a beat 'em up, Spider-Man, to Devil May Cry. Absolute shit opinions. But let's listen to what he has to say about remakes in Silent Hill 2.
How do you respect the original in a remake? Well, you can't. At the end of the day, the ultimate sign of respect would be to just accept the original as a singular perfect work in no need of alteration. If respect is on some sort of gradient, I suppose you could say I respect 2001's Silent Hill 2 more than most then.
In the initial video, he's already just like putting all sorts of remakes down with that one, just overarching like, yeah, you know, the original is the one that needs to be respected and nothing else matters. Here's my perspective. I respect a game's lineage, and that is cool, but I also respect when a developer decides to go back, pay attention to the source material, say we can update this, make this a little bit better, maybe add some additions, and then go forth with that idea. And if that idea pays off where it's on par or close to the original, then I'm not going to be too fussed about it. It's like I can always play the original whenever I want. That experience will still be that experience from the past, and I will still appreciate that game. If the remake is on par and they decide to add in a lot and build on the lore and do new and exciting things that they couldn't do back in like 1998 or 2001, where is the bad in between that? I suppose the worst thing to expect, honestly, is a bad remake. If you receive a bad remake, quote unquote, you know, I would say that as a content package, Resident Evil 3 Remake is not the most stellar, and I can see why that game made people upset, pissed, disappointed. That's perfectly fine. All people wanted was that game to live up to the original. That's it. And at baseline, it's nothing wrong with asking that. However, that being said, you saying that, well, I only respect the original and that's it, just shows disrespect for any good remakes as well. And once again, this is Gaming Brit, 100% contrarian, top to bottom.
More to the point though, even if a remake or reinterpretation of a work meets your own personal, abstract threshold of integrity or respect for its predecessor, that will only serve to validate you in the short term. At the time of writing,
How? How is that a bad thing? Okay, I received a good remake, which is what I wanted. But it only validates me in the short term. So what are you talking about? Okay. I thought the logic from people when they used to say things of this nature that I'm about to illustrate is that, hey, a good game is a good game forever. Doesn't really matter, short term or long term. I figured that would apply here, even with the proverbial good remake, right? Tell me, tell me what is going on here.
This video, if I say The Little Mermaid, the vast majority of people probably picture the late 80s Disney animated musical, and not the fairy tale written in 1837. In 1837, movies didn't exist, and animation didn't exist. Copyright expires and the world changes, so don't be surprised if in a couple of centuries, the most well-known version of Silent Hill 2 isn't the 2001 PS2 game or the 2024 remake, but a version of Silent Hill 2 that isn't just not a video game, but may in fact be in a medium that doesn't even exist yet.
So this is a lot of like, exaggeration, talking about the future tense and whatnot, and he's gonna bring up that fact in a couple of seconds, but I want to pause here real quick. I believe that people are going to try to do their damnness to preserve this stuff going forward in the future, as you've seen with Silent Hill Enhanced Edition. That's like completed right now. Lots of folks downloaded that. Yes, it's going to be wild thinking what's going to happen to these games in the next 30 years, but I believe since PC is so prevalent, that's probably going to stand the test of time. There's going to be people that just don't allow that to be taken away, and they probably already have copies of this stuff on their PCs and all this other stuff. Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 2 Remake, OG, original. This is why a lot of folks are fighting for preservation and doing it in their own ways. I believe copies of those two games will be enjoyed that way and cherished. And it is interesting to ponder what the future will be like, but the reality is we don't know yet. Until that day comes, until that day happens, and as more people probably will be outspoken if that tries to get ripped away, interpretations are going to happen often. I mean, they're making the new Silent Hill 2 movie, which is going to be an adaptation of the source material from that, but they're probably going to do some things differently. You never know. It's going to be always like people trying to do remakes after a certain while. Whether their success or failure is hindered on the fact if they're actually good or not, it remains to be seen. Silent Hill 2 is going to exist forever. It existed for 20 years after the fact when we move from 2001 to now, and it will continue to be beloved. And of course, enhanced, it makes me feel good owning that. And you can still buy the HD collection even though it's not the greatest port. So, I mean, there's still ways to get the original game if you look hard enough.
Suppose glaring into the uncaring void of the future isn't quite as satisfying as the catharsis of complaining in the immediate present. I would know, I've ranted for longer than most about certain remakes.
Translation, I'm gonna whine my ass off about this one, and I already have. Even though I've probably been proven wrong, considering the fact, but that's neither here nor there. Again, I just think he likes to complain a lot. It's not the first time I cover Gaming Brit. Probably won't be the last. Especially considering this video.
But I'm gonna refrain from taking a blowtorch to Silent Hill 2 Remake, even though it probably deserves it. In part,
that is an interesting opinion. I would love to hear him break down as to why he hates this game, but I think he knows at this point that it's kind of interesting to catch on to the pyre of all the positive press that it's getting after being completely decimated. So he probably does have videos saying, oh, this is gonna be like, I don't know about this one in particular, Chief, and then now it's like, this is the perfect time to make a video and do the opposite, which I guess people are super inclined to do, but then I think it gets worse.
because I've accepted the futility of railing against the infinite future, redoing everything that came before, but also just in this specific case, because the intention by those involved already seems so cynical that to try and judge the merit of any of this as art seems like a farce.
That's so fucking dumb. That opinion is fucking stupid, bro. It's like, oh, I don't really interpret this as art because I don't fucking like it. So it's just like that contrarian opinion. People have been saying this too on Twitter, and I'm just like, if the art lives up to the source material, and if this game does indeed try to preserve that and be respectful to those origins, which you can plainly do, I don't really think it's going to be an issue. Especially if the story is like more one for one to the original Silent Hill. Now, we will see if there are scenes that I do like and don't like, and I'm very, very, very protective of Silent Hill 2. Like I'm also protective of it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. We will see if it lives up to the hype. But that's what you're kind of supposed to do versus just writing it off, which is why I have a problem with this video. As for the usual implication that, oh, well, the gaming industry is not doing anything original. All they're doing is remakes. This is the future of gaming now, where we basically remake the same blueprint of something that was successful hundreds of years ago, 20 years ago, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, aren't Konami making two new Silent Hill IPs? Silent Hill Townfall and Silent Hill F. Isn't Resident Evil 9 going to be a brand new sequel? So it doesn't really matter if they decide to slap another remake next to it. They still have a brand new game coming out on top of it. You see, this is where the nuance dies. This is where people don't point out this information and it becomes debunked in like 5 seconds. There's always going to be new and there's going to be reimaginings of an older work because, I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of like popular now. But if they respect that source material and they decide to adapt it in a newer way, which is pretty cool, there's no problem.
Any studio that offers themselves up as the ones to improve upon something as classic as Silent Hill 2, I can only imagine have to be driven by some level of presumption and hubris.
That's a funny comment because I believe that Konami is the one that were approaching people to do Silent Hill 2 remake, and they selected between multiple candidates. And they saw that Bluebird was the most fit for the job. And well, I guess as you can see with the review score here, the 87, maybe they proved themselves a little bit. I don't know. You tell me. But the thing is that multiple people were approached. It wasn't just them on the podium. Obviously, they showed some sort of worth and they screamed a little bit, but it was also Hexadrive that was making a Silent Hill prototype, and apparently Hexadrive was not that fit for the job, which is why they chose them to do Silent Hill Short Message. You kind of have to pick out the best person for the job if you're outsourcing a beloved IP, and if you took a chance and it paid off, well, that just shows you have good judgment overall. Although I do want to see Hexadrive work on more Silent Hill projects. I hope that is in their future. They deserve a second chance because I did kind of like Silent Hill The Short Message, even though it's a bit heavy-handed. But I would like to see them do something else.
And the bankrollers Konami have mostly abandoned the idea of hiring creative talent to come up with new ideas.
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting point of the video because if we look back into Konami's history, I agree. They shot off both of their feet with a shotgun when they decided to get rid of Hideo Kojima, and I am not debunking any of that. I am not arguing any of that. That is true. He was one of their biggest VIPs. Konami and Kojima was like bread and butter. Like, Come on, they fucked themselves over by getting rid of him, firing him, and he was a main leading creative talent. Zone of the Enders 3 would have been fucking fire, alright? But let's look at the now. Sure, we can forgive, but we will never forget. But if we look into the present of them trying to work into a new Metal Gear Solid Delta, and them also creating a new Silent Hill production studio made in-house in Japan, we don't know what those guys are working on. We know that the Metal Gear team, they talked about the idea that if they remade Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear 1, and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, that it wouldn't be anything like Delta. It would need more work because they're reimagining some of these games at this point, which makes sense. If they remade Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2, then those are games that were stuck in 16-bit, 8-bit back in the past. I don't see the issue with those getting remade. That would make perfect sense. But yes, they did kneecap creative, but now they are trying, because I mean, that's what you do in a restructure. You try to fix the problems of the past so going forward, you can make up for those mistakes and atone. If this team works on a new Metal Gear, then they need to be honed in, and you need a leader if you're not going to have Kojima back on board. Like, it's very hard to imagine a Metal Gear without Kojima writing the script for a new one, or working on a new one, or directing it. So I think, personally speaking, just give them time to get accustomed to the series again. If it's full of like ex Kojima Metal Gear staff with Delta, let's see what they work on first here, and then if they do remake Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear 2, I'm fine with it. If they make a new game in the future, I'm fine with it, but they need creative leadership going into that, and I think that is missing from this argument. Also, like I said, Silent Hill production studio, they are completely in-house in Japan. How about we wait and see what they do next before saying, oh, well, it's not rife of creativity anymore. I am Gaming Brit. I can't tell the future, but I'm going to try to predict it in the present. That makes no sense.
Instead, they've decided to become almost a pure port and remake company, repackaging their back catalogue without even the veneer that it's some way to bring the stories of the past to the present in the case of its remakes.
I thought some people wanted Konami to put out ports, especially of those Castlevania games from the past, because, well, I mean, the only way to play them is on some original hardware, and now they are bringing those back to life. So it just seems like you're anti-remake, remaster, which is fine, but it's painfully obvious at this point. It's like, okay, man, and you're not even acknowledging Silent Hill F or Townfall or anything else. It's just like, hey, damn, Metal Gear. Hey, damn, Silent Hill 2 remake. It's so fucking funny. I can't stop laughing, dude.
Skipping straight to the numbered entries that they know have the most clout. That description of Konami's
I mean, you know, Capcom kind of did that as well with Resident Evil 2, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. Sometimes developers do that, and then I guess I don't mind them working backwards, like Silent Hill 1, because if you do Silent Hill 1, you got to instantly do Silent Hill 3 after that. I mean, yeah, and if you look at some of the sales for Silent Hill, you talk about clout, right? Silent Hill has never been like a well-selling franchise. It has like clout to its name in terms of recognition, but that recognition only took them so far. Remember, Silent Hill 3 was going to be like an arcade shooter. And that was going to be funny as fuck, because it's like Silent Hill 2 didn't really sell that well. It's like, damn. But we live in a new era now where very good remakes sell according to the Capcom blueprint, so I guess we'll see what happens.
sounds like the programming of an AI, and if SH2 Remake is to receive any praise, then there's no doubt in my mind.
Wait, what? What the fuck? The programming of an AI? Wait, hold on, wait, I gotta listen to this again.
to the numbered entries that they know have the most clout. That description of Konami sounds like the programming of an AI, and if SH2 Remake is to receive any praise, then there's no doubt in my mind a lot of gamers will be perfectly happy with AI being used to create whole games in the near future. And when it
What? What? What the fuck? Okay. Okay. So if you are excited, or if you were excited for the Silent Hill 2 remake and you decide to accept it, that means that you are consuming so much quote unquote slop. You know, he won't say it. But you are consuming so much slop that you would accept an AI generated Silent Hill 2 remake in the future just because this guy said so. I'm not making this shit up. What is he talking about? What the fuck? Okay. I'm pretty sure now AI gets a lot of ire and folks kind of don't like it. Anything that looks sloppy or off gets immediately criticized. You don't even have to look into the future to see shit like that. You can look into fucking Twitter and find shit like that around. What are you talking about, bro? Like, it's not an example of a video game, but I'm gonna use a TV show. Secret Invasion. Remember the opening with the AI generated art and all that other stuff, and people just said it's ugly looking, it looks out of place and all this other stuff? That intro got roasted to death, all right? So I don't think people will be fine with the AI generated six hands fucking James Sunderland. I just think you live in a world where you believe that somehow in the realm of this universe this is going to happen, and it's not going to get even more blowback than the Bloober Team remake. So what the fuck are you talking about? Like, bro, like what point is this, all right? the and I say this all the time. I say this all the time. Every time people see something that's off or whatever, they will say something about it. Like, you underestimate how fucking folks say something and sometimes over exaggerate things on the internet. It remains true. It will never change. People said that Silent Hill Ascension was like chat GPT script. It was terrible. It was awful, and they did not accept it. So you saying this, and they use AI for that, by the way. You saying this makes no sense whatsoever. Why can't we accept that we just simply got a good game as opposed to making all these dumbass straw men? Like, come on, bro.
it comes to remakes, at least, I'm honestly prepared to just let them have that future.
Oh, thank you, please. The less you talk about this stuff, the better, because your AI comparison was trash.
Limp regurgitation of something that came before, offering us little more than a thought experiment as to what something written in the language of the past might look like fed through the accepted language of the present. I actually don't know why we waste real human man hours making this stuff. Doesn't seem like they're really needed until
What the fuck? Yeah, he's going full contrarian in this video. Let's rephrase that. He said it seems like game remakes aren't really needed. I'm pretty sure you could tell that to the new people that managed to get into a game series for the first time when it came to remakes. I'm sure they would have some colorful things to say to you. I'm pretty sure of that. What about the people that get into a franchise from a remake and then they retroactively go back and appreciate the older games and become fans? Like I did when I played Code Veronica as my first RE game, and I went back and I played RE2, RE3, and RE1, and I love them. What about that demographic? What about those people in particular? I'm just asking questions. You think that this is all detrimental to them? I'm just curious. I'm curious on your opinion on that one.
that new theoretical medium. We might as well let the computers turn out this kind of cultural slop. Judging by what I've seen,
What the fuck? There it is. Every contrarian always, they always say that word, slop. slop this, slop that, slop your mother. They always say that word. That's how you could tell someone is a contrarian. They're prepping up for that statement when they call something slop and when they make a correlation that makes no sense. Like, how the fuck do we go from game remakes are not needed to everything's going to be AI and terrible and awful and accept it when people have denounced AI? We saw this with the Naruto Storm connections where there was like some AI replacement voices and people said, "What the fuck is this?" The voice actor said, "What the fuck is this?" They hated it, they shunned it, and therefore, once again, it shows that people are against AI, and if they find it trash, they will call it out. Same thing happened with, once again, Secret Invasion show. The intro was AI. Nobody liked the AI generated art. They hated it. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, what are you talking about? You sound like you just smoked the highest doobie when you made this video.
And it seems a lot of people are already prepared for that future too. Type in a game and the words AI remake or something, and you'll find concept videos generated in AI with hundreds of thousands of views. Comments below in awe, saying it looks like exactly like what they'd want to see. Call me cynical, but I don't think the resistance against AI art can survive its results being appealing to so many people. So maybe
Oh my god, this is giving me a brain aneurysm. Not everyone likes AI arts or AI generated content if it comes off as robotic. I've seen this before. We will see it again. We will see it even more. The fan art stuff, it looks nice, it looks cool. Don't get me wrong, and maybe there is a big debate of, yes, gaming companies will use AI in their video games for better or worse. Like, there will be times where if it's like growing more trees in the background, something procedural or something like that, I don't really care. It's like in the background, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. You're probably gonna see AI advance in that rate to cut down game development in the background with the graphics and stuff like that. I mean, if they make it look cool, it's fine. If something looks jarring once again, or sounds jarring, or feels like they are replacing actual humans, it's going to be called out. We saw the first AI movie made not too long ago, and the voice acting was garbage, alright? In that trailer, and let me see, I'm gonna look it up for you right now because I love this media, alright? I love when I get into these things and I see the comments from other people. So let's just help you out here with the film media. I have found it. Next stop, Paris. Let's see what people are saying in the comments. This was from 5 months ago and it has 10k dislikes. Okay, and the comments are turned off, so we can't even see the comments. This is terrible.
Right in front of you.
This is, the acting is like Chat GPT basic mail 1. Look, people can tell when there's no effort put into something, and if the gameplay doesn't translate, if it's not well, if it looks like a duck but quacks like shit, it's gonna be perceived as that. And until people play it, the first AI generated game, and if they find every cylinder of the gameplay, the voice acting, the graphics, if something is off, like you know how critical motherfuckers are. You have no idea, dude. You have none, like literally speaking. And we've seen this medium try to be copied into a movie and it's not being perceived well. I think it's just you can make something look cool in AI, but if it comes off as trash or whatever, people are going to be kind of like voicing their mindset on it. And the same will be said if a game remake decides to do this and diminish real people, real actors, the whole 9 yards. Again, we saw this with Naruto Storm Connections, where the voices were AI generated and pretty bad. And a lot of fans don't like it. They don't like it at all, myself included. Let's go back to the original point here. Let's find this shit real quick. Oh no, that's my comment section, so my bad.
maybe remakes and AI are the perfect marriage. Let's just automate
he wants to put these two things together so bad and make a point, make a correlation, and it's such a shit point.
This recursive practice of redoing all the old games and then have all the human creators make original products. That could end up being the good ending to all of this. In a world where we can't
He wants this to be like Skynet for video games. Oh, they finally pulled the plug at about 11 p.m. in 2023. It's like
stop reimaginings, I would see this as a better option, so we can keep innovation trucking along, while selling people the basic modern conversions a lot of them seem to crave. After all, is there even a big difference between a human taking the original game and then mapping it onto the look of whatever the most current games look like, and a computer doing it? Well, the inevitability of remakes is
yeah, what are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Of course, like, if there's actual passion versus an attempt without passion, you should be able to tell the difference, AI or not, right? Right? Come on. That's crazy talk.
as the centuries roll on, has caused me to not lose much sleep over the impact remakes have on the legacy of an original. That still
I'm losing sleep over listening to his voice in this video. This is fucking terrible.
doesn't alleviate my life in the present being overrun with this stuff at the cost of something new. 200 years later in a new medium seems like a more reasonable time and place to reimagine something than what
200 years? Holy fuck. That's way, way too long. And we've seen like remakes done in like 6 years time with Resident Evil 1. So, I mean, we've seen lesser time with better quality. And that has happened. So you gotta call a spade for what it is, right? I mean, Capcom did it. They done it. And we've seen it happen.
we do these days. Right now, we're all being forced to live our life in this weird culture that loops every 20 years. There is a major difference between adaptations made centuries later and our present fast turnaround that's worth pointing out, though. Nobody who's seen the 1989 Little Mermaid cartoon would claim to have an understanding of the 1837 fairy tale. Yet today, remakes do seem to be sold as a way to catch up on something missed. So if
I will say one thing, and I'm gonna sort of put this out there. I don't think we're ready for the idea of remaking a remake yet. I don't think that has sunk in yet. While I am okay with the idea of them remaking something like RE1 again, I also believe, and I'm future-proofing this, if they do it, that game is going to get some blowback because there's going to be a lot of people that will say, well, they already made, like, Resident Evil 1 before, right? In the past. Why are they doing this the second time? I don't think we're going to be all ready for that, all on board with that, and it kind of shows with some of Capcom's comments and the disagreements that happened where people said, I don't think we're ready for remaking a remake in a game format. But for movies, that shit happened like 9 times over in a very short window when you think of the Night of the Living Dead remake. So, you know, that's not like 200 years old. They did that in less time. And I don't know, man, it seemed like he almost got it with the idea of saying, yes, the remakes are made to catch up on things if you haven't really caught up on it in the past and experienced these things. But again, there are layers to this conversation which I think he doesn't understand. He tries to make correlations to each other and it doesn't make sense. He tries to pull in things like AI art and hey, you're gonna accept slop and AI games and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, bro, if I see someone with like fucking 8 fingers in a Silent Hill 2 remake after this, I'm calling that shit out, no problem whatsoever. Assuming I'm still alive by that point, right? And it's just like he underestimates what people will say, what people will do. People initially thought the Silent Hill 2 remake that we're getting was trash before it even came out. So it's like that wasn't even fair, right? It's like just think about it for a little bit. I don't understand where this guy is coming from, but it is clearly a purist contrarian chair that's being sat on right now.
play SH2 Remake, don't kid yourself into thinking you've experienced Silent Hill 2.
Well, it's a way of experiencing Silent Hill 2. It's just another way. It's an alternate way. But if you want to play the original game, there is Silent Hill 2 Enhanced, and it still is out there available for people to download right now.
If that statement sounds at all offensive, I'm not sorry, because it's just a statement of fact. Violin score
I don't think that's a factual statement, more like subjective, if you want my honest opinion, but go off.
tales of how the game is inaccessible to you this minute unfortunately won't change that reality. Silent Hill 2 is a PS2 game, not an abstract concept that needs to be bent into a different shape for consumption because it's been a couple of decades.
What? Okay, so because Silent Hill 2 is a PS2 game and, it doesn't need to be bent, contorted for all this consumption, that is inherently an issue because... Why is that a problem of experiencing the original if it was remastered? I don't see a problem with that. Now, the remaster they made was not of quality, which is why people kind of shat on it, but that's another story entirely. I don't think it's a problem to have the original preserved while having an alternate version that plays better. Because, I mean, Silent Hill 2 gameplay for the OG is trash, and I love the OG to death, but I can admit that.
If you've seen videos or screenshots of PS2 Silent Hill 2 and were more interested in spending money to get a PS5 and the about 5 games that it has, instead of finding a way to play SH2, maybe you weren't as interested in playing it as you thought.
I don't even know what to say with that ridiculous statement. Like, okay, the original game... Yeah, I know what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that, yes, if you bought like a $500, $600 PS5, then of course, why are you complaining about the idea that, you gotta preserve things digitally, and that shit was like $200. Maybe you weren't that interested to get an older copy. We're talking about the idea of getting a new console that's gonna have stuff on it like Ghost of Yotei next year, and this remake, which is getting a lot of praise and good reviews, on par with the original or close to it. And we're talking about buying the original game at $200 on older hardware, which is starting to go up, up, up. Right? And it's like, oh, well, you want to experience the original? Maybe you didn't care that much in the first place if you're getting all this new gen garbage. Okay, bro. This is why people build PCs for emulation, so they aren't always paying an arm and a leg for older games experienced on old hardware. You do understand this problem is not only related to just Silent Hill 2, but a lot of other older games going up, up, up in price. I'm not paying like almost $1,000 for fucking experiencing Rule of Rose on older hardware. I would rather emulate that and have my new gen console for new gen stuff that comes out. And newer remakes because I enjoy them, and then have my PC emulate those older titles that are like, when you add all that money up, it starts to become even more prevalent than a new gen console. Like, I'm pretty sure if I got a new version of a newer copy, I would say, a Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, Rule of Rose, the older RE games, and then the console itself for the older console to play them on. And that's going to be multiple because, PS1, PS2, all that other stuff, that's going to be probably a lot more expensive. So, it's just like, that's probably a lot more expensive than the PS5 Pro when you add it all up and you're looking for those older school games. Like, I don't really think he thought about that point before saying something. I know what he was trying to say, but when it came out, it sounded dog shit. I'm not I'm not gonna lie. Like, what the fuck? All right. Yeah, I got a new gen PS5, and I still want to play older games. And if I decide, excuse me, if I decide to go to older gen games and buy them because I care, right? Apparently, you don't care if you get a PS5 for like newer shit. So if I care for that, it's going to rack up in money more when the logical idea is just play it on PC, bro. Like that's what I was thinking when I built this 1K machine in order to experience Silent Hill 2 as, you know, as I could, the best I could, right? I still love my PS2, but obviously there's some issues with the disc tray, and I need to get that fixed as well. So it's not all perfect on the Western Front, but I still appreciate playing on older hardware. It's just that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find and track down things that work and operate well without getting like swindled. Because I was swindled when I was trying to get the Suffering, I found a disc that didn't work, so I was like, well, fuck. I guess I have to get my money back because this is bullshit. So it's shit like this happens with retro gaming. Just because you bought a PS5 does not mean you don't care about retro stuff. Some people don't actually. Some people buy new consoles just to play newer games or updated games and not older stuff. I know there are some people that hate retro, but I'm not one of them. I like the new and I like the old, and I want to experience them in the best way I can and try to make everything cost effective as possible. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right?
Which is fine. I'm not that desperate to read an 1837 fairy tale either, but I don't also think that a children's musical made 200 years later is a good substitute for whatever the intent of that old tale was. Silent Hill 2 Remake may look like apocalyptic cringe, but even the odd tolerable big budget remake seem rather disposable and feel like they're keeping us walking in place. They not only ask us to pick apart the past to decide what was worthwhile, but they also ask us to canonize what being modern means, validating the notion that the only form big budget games can take now is one where they have an over-the-shoulder camera perspective where you hold L1 to
Oh my fucking god, he really pulled the fucking, yeah, everything is over the shoulder now, blah blah blah. I've heard this debate before. I like good functionality with my third person shooters. I like shoot pointing and aiming at someone's leg, taking it out, and it feels good and fresh. I just don't think that fixed camera and dynamic camera works for the AAA medium in 2024. There still is games that will do that, like, you know, you got the top down view a little bit with Signalis, and then you have the fixed cameras in Tormented Souls 1 and 2. And then you have like more games coming out that have like differing camera angles, mostly indies. You see what I'm saying? But you don't see this with like AAA. It doesn't mean that the games that they're making right now, mostly in the OTS camera angle, are diminished just because they use that camera angle. You can still play with the themes, aesthetics, the placement of the enemies, make new enemies, do dynamic things while in a third person perspective. I mean, you just added in RE4 Remake and the DLC Separate Ways. It has a completely new enemy that was never in the original before. So, yeah, let's talk about that originality for a second, right? What happened to that? I don't know, man. Third person OTS does not mean that just because it's like homogenized in your opinion does not mean that they haven't made great horror games from the mold that RE4 OG created. And that's what I have to say about your perspective on that. I love dynamic camera angles. I love fixed camera, right? But I feel like it's not a substitute to replace what is going on now, which is better functionality, controls, and seeing the enemies from the corner and not getting your ass like torn off because you didn't see them. I'm fine with it. And I'm fine with fixed camera and dynamic camera being relevant in indie games and still having a place no matter where you look, because it's not entirely gone.
Aim and R1 to shoot by updating everything to that same model. When people talk about modernizing a game for the 2020s, that's all they really seem to be talking about. Being modern is this one perspective and control scheme all new major games are supposed to have for some reason.
Well, I mean, look at the reviews for Silent Hill 2 Remake. They made the boss battles a lot more dynamic, and people are praising that aspect because that was not relevant in the original. The boss battles were, your standard fare, but now they have phases, now they do crazy new shit. Now the beds on the ceiling can detach itself and attack the player while on the floor. So that's kind of cool, right? Like a fucking spider is kind of awesome in a sense, but this is stuff that you're not highlighting. When they do something ambitious, you decide to say, well, it's not good enough because the industry goes in the same direction just because of the camera angle. You sound stupid.
All this to say, I've accepted reality, but it hasn't made my dreams any less restless.
I accepted this video being terrible, and I am finally glad that it's over. Thank God. Okay? It's like this. If you want to embrace the past, that's fine. But I think you should stay there because talking in the present isn't sounding intelligent in the slightest. Let's move on to Endymion. This guy. Look at this wall of text. Look at all this. I ain't reading all that. I'm not reading all that. This is because of this whole Ubisoft situation, and apparently people called him out. He said that Assassin's Creed Shadows had originally a Japanese protagonist, and that they're also like diminishing Yasuke and his role, and that Yasuke overrode the initial Japanese protagonist. Like, so much shit coming from this guy. So his sources were called out by Tom Henderson, who is very credible. And here's where he said it. We're talking about what inspired Yasuke to be put in the game, what actually killed Ubisoft, and even how future Assassin's Creed games are pushing DEI further than you could imagine from an unknown source. Now, the first thing this source said was they weren't 100% sure, so that's the first doubt that you can cast, but the update from Tom Henderson saying it's not true. Assassin's Creed Shadows did not originally have a Japanese male lead that was changed to Yasuke during development. This is to farm outrage bait. Your own fucking source can't even be 100% with the source. Therefore, what are you talking about here? And then you get shot down by someone more credible than you. And the first thing you do is this whole fucking large spiel, this man baby rant. What is this? Like, dude, you talk about people coping, but look at this. You made like fucking 90 paragraphs here. Like, who's gonna read all this? I could tell you are just wrong at this point, alright? And I can show even more proof that Endymion is wrong here. So he made another claim. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know where it is in my bookmarks. I'm gonna let this play. This is kind of what he said. There's this guy named TTBN Gaming. He said the same thing that I did, so I don't need to play that. He said basically that, how can your sources say that they are credible and reliable, but they take it with a grain of salt? That doesn't make sense. Here's another thing that Endymion said. He said that Ghost of Yotei was delayed into 2026. Alright, I'm not kidding you. Look at this. They just announced this game for 2025. And now it's delayed until 2026 with no other sources or anything like that. Like, what the? This dude is a fucking rage bait grifter with no evidence in sight. Where's the proof? Show me proof that this was delayed to 2026. Please, by all means. Like, what's my source? I made it the fuck up.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
What the fuck? That's why he got ratio destroyed and stomped on to high oblivion. Because this is nothing but misinformation in a nutshell. Endymion, you suck, man. You're terrible at this. Get some sources. Get some sources, alright? Put the fries in the bag, alright? Now, the last thing. Why I hate grifters. And, well, here's from BG. I don't like BG. BG is like terrible, terrible human. But sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day. People like Grums, Endymion, and other grifters have ruined any nuance of gaming discourse for their own profitability. Now people don't even try to argue with fact, logic, or intelligence. If anything negative happens in gaming, it somehow gets pointed back to something like some grifter or something, or like, oh, it's woke DEI, all this other stuff, these buzzwords. This is why I don't like grifting, because it is not honest. We see stuff like this with the Steam curator system, where apparently someone said Until Dawn was made by Insomniac Games. I'm pretty sure if we do like a search into Until Dawn, we can see that it was made by Supermassive. I've played this game. I've beaten it, but it was made by Insomniac. That doesn't make any sense now, does it? The new version was made by, I think, Ballistic Moon Studios. So how could you not know this? Like, it's a Google search away. That stuff is not honest. Like, these grifters are not honest at all. And it is leading to dishonest media discourse, which is why I just disagree with it, because what I'm hearing does not make sense. It could be easily debunked. And a lot of these people are trying to farm off of people and make them perpetually angry, which I wish more folks would think outside the box. That's another issue entirely. Because we have these herds of people believing misinformation and spewing it over and over again, lies are being told more than the truth. And it's like Metal Gear Solid 2 is alive all over again. Everything Kojima predicted with the flow of digital information and misinformation, it's all real. All of it. And it exists in the form of rage bait and grifting and misinformation. And it needs to stop. Like, that's why I'm seeing an upsurge of people call out this stuff, because it makes no sense. It's really stupid. There's no nuance to be had, no middleman. It's annoying, it's frustrating when you talk about something and then you have people screaming, well, it's bad because badass woman character. Like, why can't we enjoy stuff with a female character anymore? It's like, I think now people just fearmonger themselves into a hole, and they don't wait to see if the game is going to be good or not, which is exactly what is happening with Ghost of Yotei. I thought Tsushima was good, so why are you guys like automatically turning on a dime saying it's gonna be shit, like stuff like that? It's not honesty. It's not waiting to see. It's bad. It's bad juju, and I don't like the outcome of what is going on, which is why I personally decided to make Criticism Sucks. I decided to speak out against that, and not to mention a lot of these people are like really really fucked up. Like, I'm not gonna lie, some of these people in these hive mind fandoms are really fucked up with the way they get into people's DMs, harass them. And so it's teetering to the extremist category, right? Where some of the worst things are being said and condoned just because someone is pulling the strings of the sheep. And that's not going to be me. That's never going to be me. I think on my own accord, and if I like something, that's great. I'm going to express it. If I dislike what is going on in a community, and I live in the gaming community, and I kind of have to talk about it, and if this stuff like politics and stuff is swarming and infecting, I'm going to express my opinion with how I feel. You don't have to like it, you don't have to accept it, but it is what I feel, and I feel like that's being honest overall. I am Renegade Operative. I am signing out. I really don't like grifting. I feel like we could do much better by being more constructive with content and by putting out that content and just showing a love and passion for video games or films, whether it goes like in one way or the other. But all this nasty shit with attacking voice actors and attacking families and how bad it's getting. And there are people that will do it on both sides, like Hogwarts and Last of Us Part 2 is like the polar opposites. But that's why this stuff needs to be called out and addressed, because it is getting absolutely ridiculous now. And I think there are people taking a stand, and they need to take a stand, and so am I. I will see you guys next time. Later.